The galaxy was a vast, complex network of hundreds of species, all coexisting under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Council. This council, a coalition of the most powerful civilizations, had ruled for centuries, maintaining peace and order, through careful diplomacy and a delicate balance of power. They believed that their rule was unchallenged, their strength unquestionable, but they had underestimated one planet, one species, and that mistake would prove costly. Earth, a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, had long been overlooked by the Council. Its people were considered primitive, technologically inferior, and of little importance in the grand scheme of galactic politics. The humans, however, had always known their worth. They had fought wars, built empires, and survived against all odds. What the Council did not understand was the unyielding spirit of humanity, a spirit that would soon rise up to shake the foundations of the galaxy itself. It all began when Earth's ambassador, a man named Marcus Wright, was sent to negotiate a trade agreement with the Galactic Council. Wright was a seasoned diplomat, intelligent and capable. He had spent years studying the cultures and politics of the alien races. He believed that peace could be achieved through mutual respect and understanding. The Council, on the other hand, saw the humans as a mere tool to further their own ambitions. During his visit, Wright was presented with an opportunity to speak to the Council's ruling members. His task was simple: convince them to allow Earth to join the Galactic Alliance, a step that would grant humans access to resources and technology far beyond anything they had ever dreamed of. But when Wright stood before the Council, he was met with scorn. The leaders of the various species dismissed him, speaking over him, laughing at his requests. They considered humanity beneath them, too unrefined to be taken seriously. "You speak of equality, Ambassador Wright," one of the Council members, a towering insect-like creature, said, "but your species is still struggling with basics, concepts of peace. You have no place in our alliance." The words stung, but Wright remained calm. He had anticipated this. He had prepared a speech that would win them over. But just as he began to speak, something unexpected happened. The doors to the chamber burst open, and a group of armed aliens entered. They moved swiftly, surrounding Wright and the Council. Members. Before anyone could react, the aliens fired a deadly energy beam at Wright, killing him instantly. The Council was in chaos. The alien assassins had taken control of the chamber, and it seemed like the Council itself was under threat. But in a shocking turn of events, it was revealed that the assassination was not a random attack. It was a political move, orchestrated by a faction within the Council who believed that Earth was too dangerous to be allowed into the Galactic Alliance. The assassination of Wright was seen as an insult to Earth. Humanity's response was swift and brutal. The Earth government, under the leadership of President Eliza Green, demanded answers. They called for the Galactic Council to be held accountable for the murder of their ambassador. The response they received was cold and dismissive. The Council claimed that the assassin was a rogue element, acting without authorization. They offered no apologies, no explanations, only a promise to investigate the matter. President Green, furious at the Council's indifference, decided that Earth would no longer tolerate the Council's arrogance. She issued a declaration of war, stating that humanity would not stand by while their own representatives were slaughtered. The Earth military, though not as advanced as the galactic powers, was a force to be reckoned with. President Green called upon the finest officers and soldiers to prepare for the coming conflict. Within days, Earth's forces began to mobilize. The military was led by General Sophia Pierce, a woman known for her fierce leadership and brilliant tactics. She had risen through the ranks of the Earth military with unwavering determination, earning respect from every soldier under her command. General Pierce understood the gravity of the situation. She knew that Earth was outmatched in terms of numbers and technology, but she believed in the strength of human resolve. They had faced worse odds before and emerged victorious. The human fleet was smaller than the galactic powers, but it was highly disciplined and innovative. Earth's engineers worked day and night to upgrade their ships, outfitting them with advanced weaponry and defensive systems. The fleet was a mix of older, reliable warships and newly designed dreadnoughts, massive ships with enough firepower to rival the strongest forces in the galaxy. As the first human warships entered space, the galaxy took notice. The Galactic Council, confident in its superiority, dismissed Earth's military as a mere nuisance. They believed that any attack from Earth would be crushed easily. They were wrong. General Pierce, aboard the flagship Resolute, had a different plan. She knew that Earth's military would never be able to match the Council in a direct confrontation. Instead, she would rely on speed, precision, and surprise. Earth's forces would strike quickly and retreat before the Council could retaliate. They would make their presence known, not through overwhelming force, but by inflicting calculated, devastating blows to the enemy. The first attack came in the dead of night. A human fleet, composed of both military and civilian ships, launched an assault on a remote alien colony on the outskirts of Council-controlled space. The colony was a mining outpost, vital to the Council's war efforts. Earth's fleet arrived, without warning, and within minutes, the colony was in ruins. The alien defenders were no match for the human ships, which hit with deadly precision and then vanished before any reinforcements could arrive. The Council was stunned. They had never expected such an attack from Earth. The humans had struck so fast, so violently, that there was no time for them to react. The first of many battles had been won, but it came at a great cost. The attack on the colony, though successful, was seen as a declaration of war by the Council. The galaxy began to stir. News of Earth's brutal attack spread quickly, and it wasn't long before other factions began to question the Council's dominance. Some saw the humans as a threat to the established order, while others wondered if Earth's rise would finally bring about a change in the galaxy's power structure. As the days passed, General Pierce prepared for the next phase of humanity's plan. Earth's fleet was growing stronger, more coordinated, and more determined with each passing day. The first strike had been brutal, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had made its presence known, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The galaxy had always operated under the belief that peace was maintained by power and control. The Galactic Council had long held the reins of authority, a network of advanced species working together to preserve order. Earth, however, was about to shake this delicate balance. The brutal assassination of their ambassador had forced humanity to make an unprecedented decision. They would no longer be passive observers in galactic affairs. They would fight. General Sophia Pierce stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her mind racing with the weight of the decision ahead. As commander of Earth's military, she knew the stakes were higher than ever. The attack on the alien colony had sent shockwaves across the galaxy, but Earth was not ready for what was coming next. The Galactic Council had mobilized its forces, and every species under its banner now saw Earth as a direct threat. The military on Earth, while experienced, was nowhere near the scale of the Council's forces. But General Pierce had always believed in the strength of humanity. The Council had made the mistake of underestimating them. Now, Earth would show them just how dangerous it could be to make an enemy of humankind. President Eliza Green paced nervously in her office, looking out over the cityscape of New York. The skyline of Earth's greatest city stood tall, a symbol of humanity's progress and resilience. The news of the attack on the colony had spread like wildfire, and the people of Earth were in turmoil. Some called for diplomacy, others for revenge. But President Green had made her decision. The Galactic Council had taken the first step toward war. It was only right that humanity respond in kind. In a speech broadcast across the entire planet, President Green addressed her people. Citizens of Earth. Her voice echoed through the halls of every home and workplace. We have been attacked. Our ambassador has been murdered, and our people are under threat. The Galactic Council believes they can bully us into submission. They believe we are weak, but they are wrong. We will stand firm. We will fight for our future, for our right to exist on our own terms. This is a fight for all of us. We will not back down. The speech stirred something deep within the hearts of the human race. For years, they had been content to live quietly, focusing on their own planet and their own survival. But now, Earth was being forced into a fight for its very survival, and the people responded with a fierce resolve. General Pierce stood before her officers in the war room, outlining the strategy for humanity's defense. Earth's fleet was still small compared to the might of the Galactic Council, but there was one thing that no one could deny: humans had a unique ability to innovate and adapt. While the Council relied on overwhelming numbers, Earth would rely on strategy, technology, and a deep sense of unity. "We may not have the numbers," General Pierce said, "but we have the heart. Our enemies may have powerful ships, but we have ingenuity. We can't fight them in a traditional battle, but we can hit them where it hurts. We'll use surprise, precision, and most importantly, we'll strike fast. The Council thinks we are insignificant, but we will prove them wrong." The officers in the room nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. They were about to face forces that had never known defeat, but they were ready to face that challenge head-on. Back on Earth, the news of the upcoming war began to ripple through the population. People were both afraid and excited. The human spirit had been tested many times before, but this was different. The fate of their species was at stake, and it was a burden they would bear with pride. As the days passed, Earth's military began to mobilize. The Earth Defense Force, EDF, was expanded rapidly, with soldiers being drafted and civilian ships being converted into warships. Every available resource was poured into the creation of new technology. Engineers worked day and night to build weapons and ships that could stand up to the might of the Council. The first step in humanity's war effort was to bolster its fleet. The EDF's flagship, the Resolute, was outfitted with new weaponry. Massive cannons capable of piercing even the strongest alien shields. New drones were deployed, automated fighters that would swarm the battlefield in overwhelming numbers. But perhaps the most important development was the creation of the Titan-class warship, a massive vessel designed to strike fear into the heart of the galaxy. The Titan-class ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Towering in size, heavily armed, and virtually indestructible, these ships were the centerpiece of Earth's fleet. They were designed not just for war, but to send a message. Humanity would not be intimidated. These ships were a symbol of defiance, a signal that Earth would never bow to the will of the Council. As the first Titan-class warship, the Vigilance, prepared for launch, General Pierce knew that this ship would be their greatest asset. With its advanced weapons, thick armor, and incredible firepower, the Vigilance was Earth's answer to the overwhelming strength of the Council. "You've trained your entire life for this moment," General Pierce said to the crew of the Vigilance. "The galaxy has underestimated us. It's time to show them why that was a mistake." On the eve of the battle, the soldiers of Earth gathered in their barracks, ready to board their ships. The war would be unlike any humanity had ever fought before, but the human race had faced challenges throughout its history. They had been tested in ways no other species had been. They had fought wars of survival, had endured hardship, and had always come out on top. This would be no different. The night before the battle, President Green spoke to the nation once again, her voice filled with strength and determination. "My fellow humans," she said, "tomorrow we fight not just for our survival, but for our place in the galaxy. We have been wronged, and now we must make things right. The Council thinks they can break us. They think they can destroy us. But they do not know the strength of the human spirit. We are not just fighting for our planet. We are fighting for our future. We are fighting for our children. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy what it means to stand up to tyranny. As the fleet prepared to launch, a sense of unity swept across the planet. Humans from every walk of life, from every corner of the globe, stood together as one. The war had brought them together in a way nothing else could have. There were no divisions now, no politics, no petty differences. Humanity had one goal: survival. As the Resolute and its fleet set course for the Council's stronghold, the Yasi, tension was palpable. The eyes of the galaxy were upon them. What would the humans do next? Would they be crushed under the weight of the Council's forces, or would they show the galaxy the true meaning of strength? The answer would come soon. Enough. The first strike had shaken the galaxy to its core. Humanity, once thought of as a weak and unimportant species, had struck back with such force and precision that the very idea of underestimating them became a terrifying thought. The Galactic Council had not expected Earth to retaliate so quickly, but now they were facing a threat that could no longer be ignored. General Sophia Pierce stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes focused on the star-filled expanse ahead. The fleet, now ready for battle, was poised for their next move. Earth's military had proven its worth in the first strike, but the Council was not known for backing down easily. They would retaliate, and Earth's forces had to be prepared. General Pierce knew that they had only one shot at proving that. Humanity was not to be trifled with. The mission ahead was simple in theory, but dangerous in practice. Earth's fleet would attack a heavily fortified outpost on the edge of Council space. The outpost was vital to the Council's control over the galaxy, and they would not let it fall easily. But General Pierce had no doubt that this attack would send a message. The humans were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for respect. They would show the Council that Earth was capable of challenging their power, and they would do so with ruthless efficiency. The Resolute was flanked by a group of smaller warships, each one heavily armed and ready to strike. The newly minted Titan-class warships, including the Vigilance, moved in formation with the fleet, their sheer size and firepower acting as a symbol of humanity's growing strength. The ship's captain, Colonel Marcus Harper, stood beside General Pierce as they observed the fleet's movements. "We're ready, General," Harper said, his voice calm but steady. Pierce nodded. "It's now or never. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. No hesitation." The fleet began its journey toward the outpost, and the tension on the bridge was palpable. The plan was simple: approach the outpost undetected, strike swiftly, and disable their defenses before reinforcements could arrive. Earth's fleet was still outnumbered, but with speed and precision, they could make their presence felt in ways that the Council had not expected. As they neared the target, General Pierce gave the order for the first wave of fighters to launch. The drones, smaller ships controlled by advanced AI, swarmed out from the fleet like a storm of steel and fire. Their target was the outpost's defense grid, a network of powerful weapons designed to protect the station from any attack. If Earth's forces were to succeed, they needed to disable the grid before the outpost could retaliate. The drone swarm hit its mark with deadly efficiency. The outpost's defense grid, once thought to be impenetrable, began to falter. Energy. Shields flickered and fell, and the Council's automated defenses were destroyed in a hail of laser fire. For a moment, it seemed as though the humans had won before the real battle had even begun. But the Council was not so easily defeated, as Earth's fleet moved into position for the next phase of the attack. The enemy forces began to regroup. Massive ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything Earth had ever encountered, emerged from hidden hangars deep within the outpost. They were the Council's elite warships, sleek, fast, and deadly. The moment these ships appeared, on the battlefield, it became clear that the true challenge had only just begun. General Pierce had expected this response, but she had not expected the ferocity with which the Council would retaliate. The Council's warships launched their own attack, firing energy weapons so powerful that even Earth's dreadnoughts shuddered under the blast. The human fleet fought back with everything they had, but the alien ships were unlike anything they had ever seen. They were faster, more agile, and far more heavily armed than the ships they had encountered in the first strike. But humanity's fleet was determined. General Pierce barked orders to her officers, directing them to engage the enemy with everything at their disposal. The Resolute moved in close to the largest of the enemy warships, firing its massive cannons in quick succession. The shock waves from the blasts rocked the surrounding ships, but the Resolute held firm. "We can't hold them." "Off for long," Colonel Harper warned as the enemy ships closed in. "We don't need to hold them off for long," General Pierce replied. "We just need to keep them busy until the next wave arrives." Humanity's second wave was coming. The remaining Titan-class warships, including the Vigilance, were preparing to enter the fray. These massive ships had the firepower to break through even the toughest defenses, and their sheer size made them nearly unstoppable. As the Titan ships entered the battlefield, the tide of battle began to shift. The Vigilance fired its primary weapon, a cannon so powerful it created a shock wave that rippled through space itself. The blast hit one of the Council's warships dead on, disintegrating it in an instant. The remaining enemy ships, though formidable, could not match the power of the Titan-class vessels. One by one, the alien warships fell before the might of humanity's firepower. But victory came at a cost. The battle had been brutal, and Earth's fleet had sustained heavy damage. Several smaller warships were lost, and many of the Titan-class ships had suffered significant damage to their outer hulls. General Pierce watched as the Resolute took a hit, the blast knocking out several systems on the ship. The crew scrambled to restore order, but the damage was severe. "We can't keep this up much longer," Harper said, his voice tinged with concern. General Pierce gritted her teeth. "We don't need to keep it up for much longer. We've done what we came to do. The Council knows we're not a species to be ignored. This battle may be won, but the war is far from over." Despite the heavy losses, humanity had won the day. The Council's outpost was in ruins, and the alien fleet had been forced to retreat. Earth's fleet, battered but unbroken, had proven that they were not only capable of surviving against overwhelming odds, they were capable of winning. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The Council, though wounded, would not stop their pursuit of Earth. But the message had been sent. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not afraid. And they would fight for their place in the galaxy, no matter the cost. The battle had left a lasting mark on both the galaxy and humanity. Earth had proven that it could stand against the power of the Galactic Council, but the victory came with its own set of challenges. The Council, though wounded, was far from defeated. They would not take this blow lightly. The galaxy's leaders were regrouping, preparing for the next phase of the conflict. Humanity, meanwhile, had tasted what it was like to fight a truly brutal war, and they knew this was only the beginning. General Sophia Pierce stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes scanning the star-filled void. The ship was damaged, but it had survived the brutal battle, and so had the fleet. However, Earth's forces had paid a heavy price. The human fleet had destroyed several of the Council's warships, but at great cost to their own forces. Many ships were crippled, and the remaining ones were in need of urgent repairs. The Council's military had proven to be more dangerous than anything humanity had encountered so far. "We need to strike again, General," Colonel Harper said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "We can't let them rebuild. We have the advantage." General Pierce turned to face him, her expression serious. "I agree, but we have to be smart about it. The Council won't let us get away with another attack. They'll be waiting for us." The last battle had shown humanity's ability to fight and win, but it had also shown them the immense power the Council could bring to bear. The battle had been a turning point, but Earth's forces were not invincible. General Pierce knew that they had to keep moving forward, but she also understood the risks. The Council had many secrets, and the full extent of their power was still unknown. The bore. Intelligence reports from Earth scouts had been clear. The Council was building something. A new weapon. Something far more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. The rumors surrounding this weapon were chilling, and Earth's leaders feared that if the Council succeeded in completing it, the war would be over before it even began. "We need more time," Pierce said, pacing back and forth on the bridge. "Time to regroup, time to repair the fleet, and time to figure out what the Council is hiding. We can't afford another full-scale attack until we know what we're up against." Despite the setback, Earth's forces had made significant advancements in their own technology. Scientists had been working around the clock to develop new weapons, stronger shields, and more efficient engines. The Titan-class warships, though damaged, had proven their worth. They were the backbone of the fleet, and the new weapons they carried were humanity's best chance at surviving the war. "We've developed something new," Colonel Harper said, stepping forward with a datapad in his hand. "A new weapon. It's not quite finished, but it's our best shot at leveling the playing field." General Pierce took the datapad and studied the information. What she saw was both promising and terrifying. The weapon was still in its early stages, but its potential was clear. It was a massive energy cannon capable of destroying entire fleets with a single blast. The weapon was still in testing, but if it worked as planned, it could give Earth's fleet a fighting chance against the Council's overwhelming power. "We need to hurry," Pierce said, her voice filled with urgency. "If the Council has what I think they have, we don't have much time." The next few days were a blur of repairs, strategies, and preparations. The fleet, though battered, was ready to move out once again. The new weapon, code-named Nemesis, was still in development, but a prototype had been completed and was ready to be tested. The engineers had worked tirelessly to ensure that it would function properly, and now it was time to see if it could live up to its potential. Meanwhile, the Council had not been idle. They had withdrawn into the depths of their space, regrouping and strengthening their forces. Intelligence reports indicated that they were constructing something massive, something that could change the entire course of the war. Earth's spies had managed to uncover the location of the facility where this new weapon was being built. A hidden base located deep within Council-controlled space. This would be their target. If Earth could strike first, they might be able to neutralize the Council's advantage before it could be fully realized. General Pierce's plan was bold, but it was the only option they had. The fleet would move in quickly, strike at the heart of the Council's weapon facility, and leave before the Council could launch a counterattack. It was a dangerous mission, but humanity had learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to strike first and strike fast. The fleet set course for the hidden facility, and the crew of the Resolute braced for what was to come. The deep, dark expanse of space stretched out before them, but within it lay the Council's most guarded secret. No one knew exactly what the Council was building, but the whispers of something powerful, something devastating, had been circulating for months. It was time to uncover the truth. As the fleet approached the facility, General Pierce's heart raced. The tension was palpable. They were moving into unknown territory, and the risk of an ambush was high, but they couldn't afford to turn back now. Earth's future depended on this mission. They had to succeed. The facility was heavily guarded, but the humans had one advantage. They knew the terrain. Thanks to their spies, they had gathered enough information to launch a precise and coordinated attack. The first wave of fighters, drones, and bombers struck at the facility's outer defenses, creating a breach in the security perimeter. The enemy was caught off guard, but the Council's forces quickly responded, launching countermeasures to defend the base. "Keep pushing forward," General Pierce commanded, her voice calm and commanding despite the chaos around her. "We've come this far. We're not stopping now." The human fleet surged forward, engaging the enemy with a renewed sense of determination. The battle was fierce, but the humans were relentless. They had the advantage of surprise, and they were determined to make the most of it. Earth's fleet, pushed deeper into the facility, cutting through the Council's defenses one by one. The goal was clear: destroy the weapon and destroy it fast. But as the human forces neared the heart of the facility, something unexpected happened. The true horror of the Council's weapon was revealed. What they had uncovered was not just a weapon. It was an entire fleet of ships, each one far more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. The ships were massive, each one capable of carrying entire armies and weapons powerful enough to obliterate entire planets. It was the Council's ultimate weapon, and it was ready to be deployed. The realization hit General Pierce like a shockwave. Earth had only been fighting a small part of the Council's true power. The galaxy had been unaware of what the Council had been building in secret. And now, humanity was facing a force unlike anything they had ever imagined. "We need to destroy everything," General Pierce ordered, her voice now filled with a new urgency. "If we don't, the war will be over before we even have a chance." As the Resolute and its fleet continued to battle through the facility, the true scale of the threat became clear. The Council had been planning for a war on a scale far beyond anything Earth could have anticipated. The battle was no longer just about survival. It was about the very future of humanity. The events of the past few weeks had shaken the foundations of both humanity and the Galactic Council. Humanity had taken a bold stand, and while Earth's fleet had won battles and dealt significant blows to the Council, the revelation of the Council's hidden fleet had brought new urgency to the war. The stakes had never been higher. General Sophia Pierce stood before her officers in the war room aboard the Resolute. Her mind was focused on one goal: turning the tide of this war before it was too late. Earth had already lost many ships in their recent assault, and they had barely managed to escape the full might of the Council's ultimate weapon. The reality was clear now. Earth's forces were outmatched in terms of sheer power. The Council had access to resources and technology that humanity simply could not compete with in a direct confrontation. The Council's new fleet, a collection of advanced ships capable of mass destruction, was a terrifying reality. These ships were not only equipped with the most powerful weapons in the galaxy, but were also designed to carry large armies of soldiers and entire ground forces. These were no mere warships. They were a mobile force of destruction, capable of wiping out entire worlds with ease. "What we're facing now isn't just a battle for survival," General Pierce said, addressing her officers. "We're fighting for our place in the galaxy. We can't just wait for the Council to finish building their fleet and strike us down. We have to take the fight to them. Now." Her words were met with nods of agreement. The atmosphere in the room was tense, but there was also a shared sense of determination. Earth had come a long way since the first strike, and now they had to step up their game. General Pierce knew that the key to winning this war wasn't just about firepower, it was about strategy and innovation. "Colonel Harper," Pierce continued, turning to her second-in-command, "prepare the fleet for a direct assault on the Council's base of operations. We're going to destroy their manufacturing facilities. If we can cripple their ability to build these new ships, we'll level the playing field." Harper nodded. "We're ready, General. The fleet is in position, and we've developed a new strategy to deal with their defenses." The plan was risky, but it was the only option left. The Resolute, along with the Titan-class warships, and the rest of the fleet, would move in on the Council's shipyards, deep within their territory. The mission was simple: infiltrate the base, destroy the ships in production, and leave before the Council could mount a proper defense. The first wave of fighters and drones launched from the fleet, weaving through space in a coordinated strike. They moved quickly and with precision, taking down enemy defense systems one by one. Earth's forces had learned from their previous encounters. They knew that the key to success was speed. The Council would never expect a full-scale assault so deep within their space. As the fleet approached the shipyards, the sheer scale of the Council's operation became apparent. The facilities were surrounded by powerful defense stations, each one armed with advanced weapons. The shipyards themselves were massive, with dozens of ships in various stages of construction. These were the ships that the Council had been building in secret, the same ships that had nearly destroyed humanity's forces just days before. "Engage the enemy ships," General Pierce commanded. "Focus fire on their defense stations. We need to create an opening for our ground teams." The human fleet surged forward, engaging the Council's forces in a brutal exchange of fire. The battlefield was filled with flashes of light as weapons collided with shields and ships exploded in brilliant bursts of color. Earth's Titan-class warships led the charge, their massive guns pounding the Council's ships into submission. But even with the human fleet pushing forward, the Council's defenses were not easily overcome. Enemy reinforcements began to arrive. New ships, more powerful than any that Earth had faced before. General Pierce's heart raced as she watched the enemy forces regroup, preparing for a counterattack. "Colonel Harper, we can't hold them off forever," Pierce said, her voice tight. "With urgency. Get our ground teams on the surface. We need to destroy their shipyards now." The ground teams, a specialized force of human soldiers trained for infiltrations and sabotage, began their descent toward the shipyards. Their mission was clear: penetrate the outer defenses, destroy the ships in production, and plant explosives in key areas of the shipyard. The success of this mission could determine the outcome of the war. If they failed, the Council would have the upper hand, and Earth's forces would be at their mercy. The human soldiers landed on the surface of the shipyard, their boots hitting the metallic ground with a loud thud. They moved quickly, their training kicking in as they navigated the vast complex of hangars and factories. The air was thick with tension as they advanced, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. As the ground teams infiltrated the shipyards, General Pierce watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Resolute. The ship's shields flickered under the pressure of the enemy's attacks, and she could see the ships of the human fleet slowly being whittled down. The Council's forces were relentless, their advanced weaponry striking Earth's ships with deadly precision. "Focus fire on the enemy command ship," Pierce ordered. "If we can take it down, the rest of their fleet will fall apart." The Resolute and the Titan-class warships turned their focus toward the largest of the Council's ships, a massive vessel that was coordinating the entire defense effort. It was a powerful ship, brimming with weapons and defenses, but the human fleet was relentless. The massive guns of the Titan-class warships fired in unison, sending shockwaves through space. The Council's command ship shuddered as it took hit after hit, its shields flickering under the onslaught. Inside the shipyards, the ground teams worked quickly, planting explosives and sabotaging the ships in production. But the Council was not without a response. As the human soldiers planted the final charges, alarms began to blare and the facility's defenses activated. Earth's soldiers fought back with everything they had, knowing that time was running out. On the bridge of the Resolute, General Pierce's eyes locked onto the enemy command ship. It was close now, just one more hit, and it would be destroyed. The tension in the air was thick as the human fleet concentrated all its firepower on the ship. The final blast hit its target, and the command ship exploded in a massive burst of light, sending shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The battle was won. But even in the aftermath of victory, General Pierce knew that the war was far from over. Earth had struck a powerful blow against the Council, but the Council was not a species to give up easily. They would rebuild, they would adapt, and they would come back stronger. But humanity had proven something important that day. They could win. They could defeat the Council. As the fleet pulled back to regroup, General Pierce allowed herself a brief moment of relief, but there was no time to rest. The war was still far from over, and the fight for humanity's survival was only beginning. The galaxy had been forever changed. The battle at the shipyards had been a turning point in the war, and humanity had proven to the Council that they were not just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The destruction of the Council's shipyards had crippled their ability to build new fleets, and for the first time since the war began, it felt like Earth might have a real chance at victory. However, General Sophia Pierce knew that this victory, though significant, was only one battle in a much larger war. The Council, though temporarily shaken, would regroup and find new ways to strike back. The humans had proven their strength, but they had yet to face the full might of the Council's military. The Council's remaining forces were vast, and the final showdown seemed inevitable. As the Resolute and the rest of Earth's fleet pulled back to regroup, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The fleet had suffered losses, but their morale was higher than it had been in months. The news of their success spread quickly across Earth, and the people began to feel a renewed sense of hope. It was the first time in the war that it felt like they might actually win. On Earth, President Eliza Green addressed the nation once again, her voice filled with pride and determination. "My fellow citizens," she began, "our forces have dealt a devastating blow to the Galactic Council. The shipyards that once fueled their war machine have been destroyed, and with it, their ability to continue building new fleets. This is a victory for humanity, for our soldiers, and for everyone who believed that we could stand against the greatest powers in the galaxy." The entire world was watching, and for the first time in the war, there was no fear in the eyes of the people. Instead, they stood tall, united by the idea that humanity was capable of anything. The war, though far from over, felt winnable now. They had shown the galaxy that they could stand against the odds, and they had come out on top. Back on the Resolute, General Pierce walked the deck, lost in thought. The victory had been significant, but she couldn't afford to celebrate. She had seen firsthand the ruthlessness of the Council. Their response would be swift, and it would be brutal. Earth's fleet had gained the upper hand for now, but General Pierce understood that it was only a matter of time before the Council retaliated. "General, we've received new intelligence," Colonel Harper said, walking up beside her. "The Council's forces are gathering near their core worlds. It seems like they're preparing for a final offensive." Pierce's expression hardened. "I knew it wouldn't take long for them to regroup. They're not going to let us have a victory that easily." "We need to strike first," Harper suggested. "If we can hit them before they're fully ready, we might be able to crush their last remaining strength." General Pierce thought for a moment. "We've already proven we can hit them hard when it matters, but this time we need to be smarter. We can't just throw everything we have at them and hope for the best. We need to strike at their heart." The plan was risky, but it was the only option left. General Pierce ordered her fleet to prepare for one final assault, one that would take them straight into the heart of Council space. This mission would not just be about military strength, it would be about sending a message. Humanity was here to stay. The Council would no longer rule with impunity. The fleet moved through space, their ships prepared for battle. The Resolute, alongside the Titan-class warships and a host of smaller vessels, made its way toward the Council's capital planet. It was a bold move, but the human fleet had no choice. They could not afford to sit back and wait for the Council to strike first. They had to finish this fight now. As they neared the Council's capital, General Pierce could feel the weight of the moment. They had made it this far, and now they had to make sure that this was the final step. The Council was preparing for their arrival, but they were not ready for the humans' full power. Earth's fleet had grown stronger, and their strategy had evolved. No longer was it about brute force. It was about precision and timing. "Prepare for battle," General Pierce commanded. "We strike quickly and decisively. No hesitation." The fleet entered the atmosphere of the capital planet with an overwhelming force, their ships firing upon the Council's outer defenses. It was a display of power like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The enemy forces, though formidable, were caught off guard by the speed and intensity of the attack. The Council's defense stations fired back, but Earth's fleet was relentless. For hours, the battle raged, the sound of explosions and gunfire echoing through the vacuum of space. Earth's fleet moved with calculated precision, striking at weak points in the Council's defenses and taking down enemy ships one by one. It was a brutal battle, but humanity was winning. The Council's forces were being overwhelmed. Inside the Resolute, General Pierce watched the battle unfold. Her heart raced as the tide of the battle shifted in their favor. This was it. This was the moment that would decide the war. "We've broken through their outer defenses," Colonel Harper reported. "The capital is within our reach." The human fleet pushed forward, their ships now entering the heart of the Council's defenses. It was here, in the most heavily fortified part of the planet, where the final showdown would take place. The Council's last line of defense was the Central Command Ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the Titan-class warships. This was the Council's last hope. If they could hold this ship, they might be able to turn the tide of the war. But if it fell, the Council would be defeated. General Pierce's voice was calm but resolute. "Focus everything we have on that ship. We end this now." The Resolute and the Titan-class ships moved into position, their weapons charged and ready. The battle intensified as the command ship fired its powerful weapons, sending shockwaves through space. But the human fleet was undeterred. They had come too far to stop now. The Titan-class warships fired their full power at the command ship, their massive guns unleashing blasts of energy that shook the very fabric of space. The command ship's shields flickered, but they couldn't withstand the onslaught. The final blow came when the Resolute unleashed its last remaining missile barrage, striking the command ship with pinpoint accuracy. The explosion was immense. The Council's command ship was obliterated, its massive hull breaking apart in a fiery explosion that lit up the skies. With the fall of their last major ship, the Council's forces began to retreat, their morale shattered. The battle was over. Earth had won. The galaxy had never seen a victory like this. Humanity had taken on the might of the Galactic Council and emerged victorious. The Council had underestimated Earth from the beginning, but now the galaxy knew that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the human fleet pulled back, General Pierce allowed herself a brief moment of victory. The battle had been hard fought, but Earth had triumphed. Humanity had proven to the galaxy that they could stand against the greatest powers, and they had shown that they were not just survivors, they were conquerors. In the coming days, Earth's victory would be celebrated across the planet, but General Pierce knew that the war wasn't just about military strength. It was about humanity's spirit, their ability to rise above adversity and never give up. The galaxy had seen that spirit, and it would never be forgotten. For now, though, Earth could rest. The war was over, and humanity had won. The galaxy was quiet for the first time in years. After the devastating loss of their central command ship, the Galactic Council was fractured. Its fleet had scattered, its power broken. For humanity, it was the moment they had been waiting for, the end of a long and brutal war. General Sophia Pierce stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars ahead as Earth's fleet moved into the heart of the galaxy. They had fought for so long, and now the war was nearly over. But even as the fleet sailed into Council space, General Pierce knew that they could not rest just yet. The battle for Earth's survival was almost won, but the Council had many resources left, and the final fight would require every ounce of humanity's strength. "We've made it this far," General Pierce said quietly to Colonel Harper, who stood beside her on the bridge. "But I have a feeling they're not done with us. Yet," Harper nodded. "We've won a few battles, General, but the Council still has their main capital to protect. They may be broken, but they're not going to give up easily." Pierce looked out the window, her gaze steely. "We have to make sure we end this, once and for all. They need to know we won't back down." The final phase of the war was about to begin. Earth's forces had suffered losses, many ships had been destroyed, and soldiers had fallen, but they had pushed through, they had fought, and survived when it seemed like all hope was lost. Now, as they moved closer to the Council's last bastion of power, the atmosphere in the fleet was tense. No one knew what to expect next. The Resolute and its fleet of Titan-class warships were positioned at the front, with smaller vessels following closely behind. They had learned many lessons in the past battles, and now their strategy was to strike quickly and decisively. The final plan was simple: break through the remaining Council defenses and force a surrender. Earth's fleet arrived at the heart of the Council's stronghold, an ancient, heavily defended world that had stood as the seat of power for centuries. The planet was surrounded by a maze of massive defense stations and elite warships, all designed to protect the Council's last stand. But now, humanity had come to deliver a final blow. "We've encountered minimal resistance so far," Colonel Harper said, reviewing the data coming through his terminal. "Their fleet is scattered, and their forces are retreating to the surface. But it's still a heavily fortified planet." General Pierce studied the map. The Council had gone to great lengths to fortify their capital. The planet was surrounded by massive orbital defense platforms, and the surface was littered with heavily guarded installations. The last fight would be a battle like no other. "This isn't going to be easy," Pierce muttered, her voice low. "But we've come too far to stop now. Let's finish this." With the fleet in position, Earth's forces moved forward, taking on the remaining defenses. The battle was fierce, and the Council fought back with all their remaining strength. Earth's ships, though battered, were determined. Titan-class warships launched missile after missile, their powerful energy cannons ripping through the enemy lines. Smaller human vessels darted around, launching quick attacks and evading enemy fire. The battle was brutal, but the human fleet's precision was unmatched. Hours passed as the two forces clashed. The space above the capital planet was filled with the sounds of explosions, laser fire, and the constant hum of engines. Earth's fleet had superior firepower, but the Council's forces fought with a desperation that made the battle feel like a war of attrition. General Pierce stood firm, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the battle unfold. She had fought countless battles, but this one felt different. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something greater. It was about sending a message. Humanity had been underestimated for far too long. The galaxy needed to know that they would never be ruled again. As the battle raged on, Earth's forces pushed deeper into the planet's atmosphere. The fleet launched a daring assault on the Council's last stronghold, a massive citadel built into the planet's surface. It was here that the last of the Council's leaders were hiding, surrounded by their most loyal forces. "We're almost there," General Pierce said, her voice filled with determination. "We hit them here, and we end it." The Resolute and its fleet broke through the final line of defense, targeting the citadel. The planet's surface shook as Earth's forces unleashed everything they had. Huge explosions rocked the ground as their missiles and laser beams tore through the planet's defenses. On the surface, the Council's last defenders were already preparing for the final fight. The elite soldiers of the Council, many of whom had never known defeat, were ready to make their stand. They had fought for centuries to protect the Council's power, and they would die defending their home. But even as they prepared, they knew it was over. Earth's forces were too strong, too united. General Pierce's ground teams descended to the surface, their mission clear: destroy the heart of the Council's power and force the Council's leaders into surrender. They moved through the citadel, bypassing defenses and neutralizing guards. The soldiers had trained for this moment, and they fought with the relentless determination that had carried them through every battle before. As the final moments of the battle approached, General Pierce's voice rang out through the comms. "Target: the Council's central command. This ends now." The last stronghold of the Council was now in their sights. The fleet's remaining weapons were fired at the Citadel's central core. The explosion that followed was colossal, sending shockwaves through the planet. The last of the Council's fleet, unable to regroup, scattered into the depths of space. Earth had struck the final blow. As the dust settled and the sound of battle faded, General Pierce stood among her troops, looking out at the aftermath. They had won. Humanity had won. The Council's reign was over. The world above the capital. Planet, once a symbol of the Council's power, now lay in ruins. Earth's fleet, though battered and exhausted, had emerged victorious. The battle had been long, and the war had taken its toll, but humanity had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy would never forget the day when Earth rose up and changed the course of history. General Pierce turned to her crew, her face calm, but filled with pride. "We did it," she said softly. "The galaxy will remember this day. Humanity has earned its place. The war was over. Earth had won, but the cost had been high. Many had fallen, and the scars of the war would remain for years to come." But as the fleet made its way back to Earth, the soldiers knew that they had done what was once thought impossible. They had brought an end to the war and secured a future for humanity in the galaxy. The galaxy would never forget the bravery of those who had fought and the human spirit that had refused to be broken. The victory was humanity's, and it marked the beginning of a new era, one in which Earth would stand not as a weak planet on the edge of the galaxy, but as a powerful force to be respected.